Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony McAdoo, Executive Director of the WKU Alumni Association. I'd like to welcome you to our Hilltoppers at Work webinar series. This series showcases continuing education, professional development, and career management topics for WKU alumni and friends. Today's webinar topic is titled Goaltending, Establishing Goals and Objectives, and is produced in a partnership between the WKU Alumni Association and Continuing and Professional Development at WKU. Joining us today is Kara Nidell, Program Coordinator of Career and Workforce Development with CPD. Welcome, Kara.
Thanks, Anthony. We are happy to be here today and get kicked off on our webinar series here. This is the first of 5 upcoming series that we will be in partnership with. And the Office of Continuing and Professional Development is extremely happy to be here today and have this partnership with the WKU Alumni Association. Today, we are going to have Amy Talicki as our trainer, who will be talking about goals and objectives. Amy is a certified trainer with the American Society for Training and Development. She has worked for WKU's Office of Career and Workforce Development since 2001, providing employee training programs for numerous businesses and industries throughout the region. In her time with WKU, Amy develops and delivers a wide range of courses, including communications, writing, customer service, leadership, and team development. She earned her master's degree in English from WKU and has taught composition and literature at WKU, Elizabethtown Community College, and Jackson State Community College. So without further ado, I will turn the program over to Amy.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Anthony. And I'm very excited to be here, as Kara indicated, in this first of a series of 5 that we've partnered with alumni to deliver to you guys. And so I'm really excited to be here to talk to you all about establishing goals and objectives. So because we are so pressed for time, I'm going to jump right into our material today and talk to you about kind of what the learning objectives or outcomes will be for this afternoon's training. And so we will learn to use the SMART model, which you've probably heard before. We will look at that and as a means to setting goals and objectives. We'll differentiate also between goals, that term goal, and objectives, which sometimes get interchanged. So we'll distinguish between those two terms and what that looks like. We will identify what your why is when you are setting your goals, to find out what the importance of that why is that you're setting that goal, which then provides the focus for achieving those goals. We'll understand the value of using a SWOT analysis in goal setting, and how that can be helpful to you as you set out to establish what your goals and objectives are. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some tips for actually achieving those goals. So that's kind of what we'll be looking at here within the next few minutes. I'll let you know this is very general information, and it is so that this can be a way to set goals not only as you think about departmental or organizational goals, but certainly applies to personal goals as well. So we'll be looking at it kind of through that general lens, knowing that it can be used for either of those types of goals that we're setting. So we'll begin with a poll here. Hopefully you can see this, and it's just simply a yes or no or true or false. You've got a couple of ways to respond to this poll, and when you do respond, we'll get immediate results here on the screen. So do you currently have goals written down? Whether that's a yearly goal or a 5-year goal, or it's just a month goal or whatever, quarterly goal. Do you currently have written goals, whether that's personal or professional, organizational, whatever? And so you can have a couple of ways to respond here. First, you can use your phone and just text to the number 22333. You'll text, it's my name, Amy Talicki, AMYTYLICKI. 45, and once you text that, then you'll get an invitation to join, and then you're just going to select A or B, whether or not you have currently have written goals. Another way to respond, of course, is just to open a tab there, and you can respond at pollev.com/Amy Talicki 745. Again, then just once you're invited to join, choosing A or B, and we'll take just a moment and let those come in. All right. So actually, as we learn about some statistics, this group that I have here is looking pretty good, that 75% of us have responded that we currently have written goals, goals that we've established and we've written down, and that hopefully we're referring back to periodically and kind of checking where we are and where we need to go. 80% now it's gone up to that we have written goals. And so we'll find out we're kind of in the minority here then if you've got those written down, because studies show us that most of us do not. So this group is looking pretty good already. Hopefully we find out that you've applied those SMART objectives to it. And then so hopefully we are rolling right along to achieving those goals. So thank you for responding to the poll there. Appreciate those responses. And I will just continue on then with the presentation here. So dreams versus goals. We all have things that we want to accomplish, whether it's career or personal. We are constantly, thinking and dreaming then about things that we want to do. We have a vision for it. But the difference between a dream and a goal really is action. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So it says the goal setting is truly like shooting an arrow. Until you draw that bow back and let it go, put the action to it. That target's out there and it's out there and you see it, but until you take action, you truly only have a dream. So the difference then, what sets that apart is that action. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today is how do we put the action behind that vision, behind that dream and truly turn it into a goal that then becomes achievable for us. So why is it important to set goals of any kind? Well, it gives us that long-term vision. So again, we all have that target out there and may or may not be putting some action towards it. But when we set that goal, then we are putting that action towards that vision to turn it into truly a reality. And when we set those goals towards that vision, that serves for that short-term motivation. That's the thing that spurs us on and keeps us going and moving towards that target. Goals help you to organize your time and resources so that you can make the most of your life. So not only at work, but at home, in your personal lives. It's the first and most critical step in prioritizing. So, of course, here with CWD, we do classes all the time in time management. And that seems to be, something, it's a hot topic. It's something we all talk about and struggle with. But when we set those goals, that really then can become our roadmap, so to speak, to get us to that place that we're going to go and help us to really be able to prioritize our time and use our time so that we are achieving those goals. So many of us, myself included, without goals, we're working as hard and as fast as we can go on a day-to-day basis, and you get to the end of the day and you've really accomplished nothing. And many times it's because we're not following that roadmap. We've not established that roadmap to figure out where it is that we're going. So we've gone somewhere, but it may not be where we're going to go. So when we establish those goals and we really begin to put the action to it, then we begin to accomplish things. And then we begin to use our time wisely and begin to be able to prioritize our time in a more meaningful way, so that when we do get to the end of the day, we've accomplished much rather than just spinning our wheels or going as hard as we can go in the wrong direction, perhaps. And finally, in the end, we can't manage what we don't measure, and we can't improve upon something until we are managing it. So it's all about really just kind of lining it out. And I'll tell you that there is nothing more impactful that you can do with your time. And it's not hard. It does take some thought process, but it is not really a difficult thing to sit down and line out your goals and begin to, as we're going to learn, put in those SMART objectives that are going to support those goals. It's just a matter of taking that action to do it. So hopefully this is going to give you some direction, help you then to unroll that roadmap and be able to see where you're headed and where you're going and what's the most efficient way that we can get there. Because as we all know, I can say that I want to go to wine country in California. That is somewhere I aspire to go. And I know it's west of here. So I can, jump on the highway or jump on a plane that's going west. And I'm probably going to wind up there some way, perhaps, if I'm lucky. But if I have not planned, if I don't really have that roadmap, that way to go, then I'm certainly going to be wasting time and certainly not getting there in the most efficient way and may not ever find my way there. So it's really about managing that vision and putting putting the action to it, the nuts and bolts to it that's going to get you to whatever that destination is for us. So just I did survey you guys just to see if you all had written goals, and looked at a Harvard business study that looked at goal setting. This is from January of 2021, so pretty accurate here as far as the statistics that we've got, that they survey people, and 83% of the population does not have goals. All right, they just don't have goals. They're too busy, perhaps just kind of getting through the day, and don't set out that time then to establish what those goals are. While 14% have a plan of some sort in mind, so they've got a vision and they're thinking about it, but they've not written those goals down. Whereas then only 3% have actual goals written down. So again, if we go back and think about the poll that you all just answered for me, this group that I have here that responded, we're doing great. So we're in that small 3% have goals written down. The 14% who do have goals are 10 times more successful than those without goals. So if I've got a roadmap of some sort, even if it's just in my head, I'm going to be more successful at getting there than those who are just kind of flailing along and just kind of muddling through, perhaps, trying to get to that place without really a plan in place. But then the 3%, so again, out of our 80% that responded, those that responded that we have written goals, we're 3 times more successful than even those 14% with unwritten goals. So when we write those goals down and we really hammer out those details, then our chances for success are going to increase exponentially, as you can see here by these statistics. And so the takeaway, of course, is that most people aren't getting what they want in their life because they're simply just not taking the time to write down what they actually want and putting that plan into action. So again, hopefully today will be a way for us to begin to write that down and to really think about those details that are going to get us to where we're trying to go. So I'll share this with you. This is, if you're familiar with Stephen Covey, again, that's another one of the trainings that we do here pretty frequently with a lot of success, is just habits of successful leaders or successful people. And this is all based on Stephen Covey's second habit within his book that he wrote way back in 1989, but it's still good and it still holds true, and it has everything to do with setting goals, and that was the habit of just beginning with the end in mind. So the underlying principle behind this is that mental creation should always precede physical creation. So in other words, before we set out and just start rushing headlong to do things, we think about how it is that we're going to execute that and how we're going to get there and how we can do that in the most efficient way. What do I have? What do I need to get? What kind of time do I have? What kind of resources do I have? So it's all about kind of creating that blueprint or creating that map, if we're using that analogy here again. If you're building a house, if you've ever built new construction or added a garage or anything, chances are you didn't just run out to, your local lumberyard and just start buying wood haphazardly and going, well, that looks pretty good. No, you probably had a plan in mind. You had a blueprint of some way that had specifications that let you know what materials you needed, what resources you needed, what kind of time frame you had in order to get this accomplished. And so that's what the idea behind this is that we're most successful when we begin with wherever it is that we want to go, looking out to that and then backing up and kind of working backwards to figure out what do I need in order to get to this end, to accomplish whatever this is. And so the key paradigms are that we can always choose and create a vision of your own future, whatever that looks like. So if that's a 1-year goal or a quarterly goal or a 5-year goal, whatever that is. And so then again, creating those results mentally before you ever set out physically to take any type of action, your first action should always be that mental creation, thinking about it, and figuring out what you need in order to get there. And so I'll just make mention of this. If you're interested, you might want to make a note of this to look at later on. Covey would tell us that starts with developing your own personal mission statement, which really can be kind of the guiding light then as you begin to set your goals in all areas of your life, whether that's personal or career, departmental goals, whatever that happens to be, that you have a personal mission statement. Where is that in? What do you want that to look like? And I will just mention, because I use it all the time, there is a free app. It's the Franklin Covey Living app that gives you the tools to kind of create that if you're interested, because this then kind of creates that vision, beginning with the end in mind, that then helps you to determine what goals then are going to be the ones that you need in place to be working towards to take you to that end. So just know that those are available as resources to you as you think about setting goals. So the next thing that I want to mention, and I mentioned this in the objectives, is that we do want to establish kind of or differentiate between the two terms goals and objectives, because they get sometimes interchanged and they are used in conjunction with one another quite a bit. And so if we think about goals, and I'll pull that side of the slide up first. Goals are very general. They're kind of the big picture, right? So they're intangible, they're very broad and abstract, and they're kind of your long-term direction. So that's there, so to speak. And if you think about that's the goal, that's the end that you're trying to get there. So that's kind of the big thing. If you look at the little picture down here, the little illustration of the ladder going to the goal. So the goal is the goal up here. It's the big thing. It's that target. But then our objectives, if we think about this picture, are what makes up the ladder, right? So the rungs of the ladder that are going to take you to the goals are what your objectives are. So objectives then, in contrast to goals, are going to be much more specific. They're going to be measurable. So these are really the nuts and bolts of how we're going to get to that target, whatever that is. So they're specific, they're going to be measurable. They're going to be much more narrow and focused versus being that broad kind of big picture goal. They're going to be much more narrow and defined, more concrete, the real actions, the real things that we're going to do, that we're going to execute in order to take us to that target, whatever that is. So then objectives, again, think about that as the rungs on the ladder that are going to take you up to that goal. Those are the tactical things. So that's the boots on the ground. Here's the things that I'm going to do that are going to take me to that long range direction, right? So the tactical then is supporting the strategic there. So they're more short range. They're going to certainly then serve to support and get you up to that target, to the accomplishment of that goal. So just to differentiate between those. So we're setting goals, but it is also important not to just have that lofty goal there, that broad goal. We've got to have the ways and the means of getting to that goal, and that's what the objectives serve to do for us. So four key questions that we're going to look at here and really hone in on today as you think about setting goals, and then again putting those rungs in the ladder that are going to take you up there, are, first of all, and this I cannot stress enough, that this very first question is very important. What's the challenge? Why do I want it? What's your why? So what is pushing you towards this goal? And again, if you've taken the time, go back to kind of your mission statement, thinking about what Covey says about that, and that's kind of your overarching thing that's going to be driving everything that you do, hopefully. Why do you want it? If we don't understand why we're doing something, or what we want, why we want to do that, then we really lose focus on when we get to the goal, which of course is your second question there. What is it that I want to do? So most important question is, why am I doing this? And then from there, you move into really focusing in and honing in on what that goal is. So what is it exactly that I want? And then how does that support why I want it? And so that's writing down, again, that broad goal that we talked about. And then the next two questions there, number 3 and number 4, again, then begin to establish those objectives for us. So that's the how we're going to do it, what the actions we're going to take, and how we're going to measure it. So number 3, of course, is how am I going to do this? You can want it all you want, but again, until we put action into it, it just remains a dream, or it just remains a vision. So how am I going to get it? What's going to be your specific plan of action to get you to reaching that goal. And then finally, target dates and measurements. So when do I want it by? A deadline. And then how am I going to measure it? How will I know that I'm making progress towards it, or that I'm halfway there, or that I've arrived there? So that's then, of course, just the completion date that you put on it, that you impart upon it, and then the evidence that you will have that's going to prove that you've reached this particular goal. So again, most important question is the why. And so I do want to show you, this is a quick little like 3.5-minute video. Michael Jr., he's a comedian.
A lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know? The next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what. The key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So break time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, once you give me the version, is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick. If you know which version I'm talking about, just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
So here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact because you're walking in or towards your purpose.
All right, so knowing your why, you can see there when the intention, when that why is clear to you, that then becomes the focus to support that what. And then, of course, what Michael Jr. wrapped up there saying is very, very important. I think when you know your why, then your what has more impact, and you're going to be much more focused on it because you're walking in and toward your purpose. So not just a goal out there because it sounds nice, but why really am I aspiring to do this? What is this going to support in me? Whether this is, again, to go back and support that beginning with the end in mind as you think about what your vision statement is, what your own mission statement is. When you know your why, then our process to getting to the what is much, much more impactful. So how do we do this? Let's then talk about the SMART objectives. So again, we talked about the goal being kind of the broad thing. That's the thing that we're trying to get to, that target. But we have to have those tactical things that are going to actually get us to that target, whatever that is. So certainly you've probably seen the SMART acronym when it comes to goal setting before. But just to kind of refresh your memory on that, or if you've not been exposed to it before, kind of let you know what that is. So the S, of course, stands for specific, and we've already talked about that objectives are specific, so they're clear and unambiguous. These things, by the way, we make those objectives specific when we have the MART present. So if we go on down and look, then M stands for measurable. How will I know that I'm making progress towards that? How will I know when I'm halfway there? How will I know when I'm 3/4 there, when I've arrived there? So it's the way we have to have some measurement that's going to indicate to us that we are on the right track or that we've achieved that goal. So we've got to have some way to measure that. Action oriented, then that's the actual actions. So, that's structured in the terms of the output. It's going to have an action verb in there of some sort, or probably several actions that you're going to be taking to get you to that target. The R, of course, stands for realistic. That has to be, a goal has to be doable. It has to be attainable. Now, certainly, if it's easy and it's already there, that's not really a goal, but it's something that we're going to work towards. But we all know that if we have unrealistic goals, then our motivation, if we know that there's no way that we're going to accomplish that, then our motivation to even try then is gone. So it has to be realistic. We have to look at that. And then finally, the T stands for time bound. We have to put timelines on it. We have to have deadlines, milestones, whatever that is. And so we have to look at this kind of all together, all these moving parts. But when we have the timestamp on it, we've determined then if it's realistic, we've got the actions that are going to take us there, and we've got some way to measure it, then that's going to serve to make those objectives specific. It's going to have those specifications that are going to be the tactical things that are going to get us to that target. So I always share just kind of a personal experience here where I've seen this in action. So if you're trying to set SMART objectives, we can kind of see how this works or does not work, or can kind of go off the rails. So many years ago, I worked as a fitness instructor at a women's only facility here in Bowling Green many years ago, where I taught classes, but we also would consult with new members and kind of get them on a fitness program in order to get them to whatever their fitness goals were. So, a couple consultations with them or ever how many they wanted, but certainly an initial one just to kind of get them acclimated to using weight machines and the equipment and so forth. And so, I would have 2 or 3 of these a day. And I don't know about you all. I don't know if you have, maybe not lately, but been to a gym and gone to a gym on, let's say, January 2nd of any given year. So if you go to any fitness facility, first of the year, number one goal for many people at the beginning of any year is to lose weight or to get in better health and be more fit. So these folks would come in and I would start a consultation session with them. And my first question, of course, was, tell me about your fitness goals. All right. So I'm trying to establish goals. I want to try to help them get the objectives to get them to that target. And, 9 out of 10 ladies that would come in on January 2nd would say to me, well, I need to lose some weight. Okay. All right. So we would do all the preliminary things. We would weigh, and I would take her measurements and body fat analysis and all this kind of stuff. And, okay, yeah, let's take a look at this. How much? So now I'm trying to measure, how much weight are you looking to lose? And let's say this lady would say, I want to lose 50 pounds. Okay, good. That's measurable. I can put you on the scale right here and see where we are right now. And when it's 50 pounds less, that's measurable. I can see, that we've made that. So far, so good. Action oriented, we would talk about, we train her on the machines, and let's do, we're going to do 5 days of cardio, 30 minutes a day, and let's do, 3 times a week, we're going to weight train. On a program that I would set up for the person. So again, we got some good actions in here that are, going to take them to that target, whatever it is that they're looking for. And then drop down, here's where the ball would get dropped. So then I would say to the person, let's say, the person weighs 200 pounds, they want to lose 50 pounds, looking at their height and build and all that, that's good. That's probably going to put them in a really good, healthy way. And here's where the wheels would fall off, because I would say, all right, what about a deadline? Let's talk about when you want to do this by. And inevitably, the person would say to me, well, spring break is the first week of April. So if I can lose 50 pounds here in, the next 3 months, and then now everything is out the door, right? Because of that timeline they put on there, it's simply not realistic. So it's not doable. You can safely lose between 1 and 2 pounds a week. And if you're trying to do this in 3 months and you're trying to lose 50 pounds, well, we just can't do that in a safe way. That's not going to happen. So now all out the door. So all of these things are very much intertwined, right? You have to look at all of these components then to figure out whether or not this is realistic. And then, of course, inevitably, I would probably never see that person again until maybe next year when they come back and they still have the 50 pounds that they're trying to lose. So it's all about how all of these components work together, and you have to look at them, each one of those, then to figure out if it's going to be realistic or not. All right, so let's kind of pick this apart then. Specific objectives, we said, those kind of fall in place because that kind of takes into consideration all the rest of those components there. And so it's just answering the questions, what am I going to do? So what are those actions? Why is it important that I do this? So where's your why behind this? Who's going to be involved? Is it just up to me? If you're talking about a goal at work or departmental goal or an organizational goal, then there might be a lot of people there who have various roles to take you to that. And so, are there other people that are going to be involved in this? When do I want it completed? Again, putting that timestamp on it of some sort. And then how am I going to do this? What do I need to think about and get in line and lined up to be able to accomplish this? And so then the measurable objectives, so important to have some way to measure. We have to be able to tell, how are we doing? That helps us to know if we're making progress, because if you're doing these actions and it's not taking you to that direction, maybe taking you backward, then we got to reevaluate. But we have to have some yardstick of some type to be able to see how we're doing. It then, of course, allows for course corrections along the way. If this is not working, then maybe I need to change those actions, right? Those actions that we determined, maybe they're not actually taking us there, so we got to reassess. And so when we have a way to measure, we can kind of say, okay, well, back to my lady, I've lost 25 pounds, or nope, I've gained 10 more. We've got to have a way to measure that to see how we're doing and what we need to do if we need to do something different. And then when we've got something that's measurable, that's tangible evidence that you are working towards the completion of that objective. And it has everything to do with momentum and motivation to continue on, because when we can see results, whatever that is, whatever that goal is, if we see results working towards that, then that's going to be the thing that kind of keeps us moving in that direction. It keeps us going. All right. So the questions then to ask as you're measuring then, how will I know when this objective has been achieved? How will I know? Right. So I got a starting point and here's my target. How will I know? Well, when I get to this number, if we're talking about, getting weight, or if we're talking about, saving money, it's, my bank account went up by this much. What type of measurement can I use then to see how I'm doing? And then what milestones can I include there along the way to track progress? So not just, okay, well, if I want to lose weight by the end of May, I'm not going to wait until the end of May to see how I'm doing, right? I'm going to have milestones in there when I've lost, the first 5 pounds or the first 10 or whatever, that you've got those milestones along the way that are going to, again, help carry you to the end. So when we're writing measurable objectives, it's very simple. And this is something again, that you can just easily do on a piece of paper. It doesn't even have to be any type of, fancy software or anything at all. It's just, how am I going to measure? So whatever it is, and again, if we use our example of losing weight, all right, I want to lose weight. There's my action. I'm going to lose weight. How much? For my lady, 50 pounds. Now she's told me August 1st. That's very doable. All right. So now I know that it's realistic. How am I going to measure it? Well, I've got a starting weight, and now I'm going to see, when I see that scale decreasing, when I see that number decreasing there, then I know I'm working in the right direction. And then again, what organizational or life goal does this support? So if this is, your health and fitness, if it's a personal goal, if it's a work one in the second example there, if you want to increase sales, well, by how much? 7%. Well, how will I know? Well, I got to see where my sales are now. And then, when I see that that has increased by 7% or by 3%, then I know that I'm headed at least in the right direction, or I've made that goal. Again, that timestamp on it there. And then again, taking into consideration both of those variables and making sure that it is indeed realistic, that you're able to do that you have the means and the resources to be able to do that based on that timestamp. How it would be measured, again, just looking at your first number and then, where you are now. And then again, in this example, this is a company, then that's going to support a finance goal, perhaps, or a sales goal that company has. So it's very simple. Again, just something that you could write down on a piece of paper. But it's very important to kind of hammer out these details, because this is part of constructing that roadmap to get you where you're wanting to go. All right, so then we talked about action-oriented. We've got to have, what are the specific actions that are going to take me to or lead me in the direction of hitting that target. So it simply answers the questions of how am I going to do this, right? So what things do I have to do or stop doing or whatever in order to get to whatever that goal is? So we structure these objective statements in terms of the output, what the things that we're going to do, the things that we're going to actually execute that are going to take us to that result that we're looking for, whether that's a specific activity, an action, a behavior. And it's very important to use those action verbs in your statement when you write out that goal. Verbs such as, and there's, list goes on and on. When I do this class in person, I have a whole list, like, 50 verbs or something that you can use. But do put that action to it, because remember, without action, that's the key to this. Without action, we're still just, working with a dream here, not really working towards that goal. So what are the things that I'm going to do? We talked about when you have all those components, and we have to kind of look at this holistically to figure out then if we do indeed have, based on the components that I'm looking at here, does this make this realistic? Can I realistically do this? Because if we realistically cannot do it, then again, we got to reassess, because we're just wasting time there. So it's not just an aspiration, it's something that can actually be accomplished. And so of course we want it to be a challenge. If it's not a challenge, it's not really a goal, you're already there. So we want it to be, you want to reach a little bit, but it cannot be unattainable. When you look at all of your components there, we have to have all those things in place, and check to make sure that they're realistic before we set out to do that. So are you going to have the resources that you need? Things such as, do you have the skills? Do you have the funding, the equipment perhaps? Do you have the time? Again, that's why we have to look at all of these things holistically to determine whether or not it's realistic. Because just like my lady in my example at the gym, everything was great until she had this unrealistic time frame that she wanted to lose her weight by. So we have to look at all of those components then to determine whether or not it's realistic. So you have to take into consideration kind of all of those moving parts to make sure that you do have those things in place in order to achieve that goal. So some questions then that you would ask: do I have the resources? Do I need to rearrange my priorities in order to accomplish this objective, right? So again, and that can sometimes be a problem, is that you have competing goals, right? And so you have to determine, is this going to affect perhaps another goal that I have? Is it possible to complete this objective? And that's the question that you have to ask to determine whether or not you're going to be able to actually get that finished. And then again, will pursuing this objective affect other performance objectives. So again, looking at the whole picture and not just focusing on this, but thinking about all of those moving parts that need to be in place in order for you to be able to accomplish this goal. All right, and then finally, if we look at that timestamp, time is so important that we put that on there. We have to have deadlines for completion. Time frames create that sense of urgency and lead to us then doing that action. If we don't put a timestamp, if we say, okay, I've got this goal and I want to get it done sometime, well, sometime never comes because something else is always going to take precedence over that. If you don't set that self-imposed deadlines, if we're talking about work goals, a lot of times those are imposed for you. But, sometimes we have to self-impose those deadlines, and that's very important that we do that. That's going to then create that sense of urgency that's going to help us to get that done. And so again, just like with all of the objectives, they have to be achievable and realistic. And then if we've got a complex objective, then we want to break that into smaller parts and set a deadline for each completion of the phase. So if it's something, big, it's not just this one thing. There's a lot of different things that are going to take us to that goal. And certainly if you're collaborating with other folks, if we're talking about organizational goals, then we have to kind of break that into small parts and set those milestones. So some questions to ask yourself then: what's the earliest yet achievable and realistic date that this objective can be started and completed? And again, you have to look at what resources you have there available to you. What are the things you have to kind of get into place in order to begin this? But certainly taking into consideration, again, all of those components to figure out what you need to get in place in order to get this completed. Has this been included in the statement of the objective? So it's very important when you're writing that goal that you do have that timestamp on it. And then again, are there other things that have to be completed first? Are there others that are relying upon the completion of this objective? So again, if we're thinking about organizational goals or departmental goals, a lot of times we're at the mercy of maybe waiting for somebody to complete something before you can take that and do something with it. So you have to look at all of those things then and take into consideration when you're setting those timestamps on it. All right, so let's take a look here. Smart or not? So here's a nice goal. It says save money by eating out less. So somebody has the goal that they want to begin to save some money, and they looks like have at least one action that would take them there. So one way that I can save money is to assess how much I'm eating out and begin to decrease that. But this is a nice goal, but we really don't have the objectives there. We've got to start because we've got the goal of saving money and we've got one action, but we're missing a whole lot of those components there. We don't have a way of measuring. I don't know if it's realistic or not, because again, we haven't measured it. We don't have a timestamp on it, and it's not very specific. So it's missing a lot of those components. So a nice start, a nice goal if we're thinking about being broad, but the objectives are not there. And so again, we're kind of, we don't have our full plan, our full map in place there. Here's another nice one: lose 10 pounds. So again, nice goal. We do have a measurement there, right? 10, I can measure 10 pounds. I can go from my weight today, and then when I'm 10 pounds less, I can measure that, but I have no way of getting there. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't have a timestamp on it. Not sure if it's realistic or not, because if I say I want to lose 10 pounds by tomorrow, well, that's not realistic, right? So we don't have all of those things. We don't have all of those objectives then to determine whether or not this is going to be even something that we can do. So again, a nice start, but truly not a goal that's supported by those objectives. But here's a good one. I will lose 20 pounds by June 1st by engaging in 30 minutes of cardio exercise 5 times a week. I'm going to weight train 3 times a week, and I'm going to consume no more than 1,800 calories a day. So this, folks, right here is, and it's just a sentence, but this little sentence right here, we've got a goal that is supported by all of those objectives. So if we take a look at it, we got a timestamp on it, right? We're going to have this done by June 1st. I've got a measurement there, 20 pounds. How will I know? We'll measure when I start, or we'll weigh when I start, and then I'm going to, weigh along the way. And I've got some action in there. In fact, I've got several actions in there. I've got, I'm gonna do some cardio, I'm gonna exercise, I'm gonna do some weight training, and I'm gonna, really monitor my diet here. So all of these things, all the components are there, and so by having all of that, all of those things in place, I now have set a very specific goal with very specific objectives, the way to get there. So my map is in place. I know how I'm going to do it. I know when I'm going to do it by, and I've got a way to measure my progress. So this, folks, is a perfect example of a SMART supported goal, which, by the way, I'll let you know is my goal. That is my goal for right now, one of them. So let's talk about then SWOT analysis. And I do want to just mention this. If you're just not sure where to go, SWOT analysis has been used for many years. It's been around for a long time. Organizations use it, but you can certainly use it in a personal way too. And again, nothing too fancy here at all. It's just something you could do on a piece of paper and just kind of divide that paper into there, where you just think about your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities and threats. So strengths and weaknesses are the things that you have internally, the things that you're in control of, right? So all these things are in control of. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And then the opportunities and threats, those are the things outside of yourself that will affect then your ability to get to a certain target. So, what are the positive aspects that are not under my control, that are opportunities that, maybe I need to capitalize on, or that will take me ultimately to wherever my goal, whatever my target is. And then what are the threats? What are the things that I've got to be aware of and maybe be proactive about that are not under my control? What can I anticipate that might kind of keep me off track? So this is just a good way to kind of really think about where it is that you want to go. And looking at these things holistically. It's great for organizations. If you look at the organization as a whole, in fact, when we do this with organizations as a, strategic planning, this is the first thing that we're going to do is a SWOT analysis with them, is just to kind of see where they are and then where they want to go, and then what resources they have, strengths and weaknesses on that team, opportunities and threats that are going to either help take them to that goal or, maybe kind of throw a wrench in things. And so how can we anticipate that, and what can we do about those particular threats? So this is just a good way to begin to goal set, not only personally, but certainly in an organizational setting. And so you can extract the goals from that SWOT analysis, just by, again, looking at those things. How can you capitalize on the strengths that you have? What can I do to minimize those weaknesses that I have? And then how can I take advantage of the opportunities that are perhaps ahead? And what can I do to avoid or lessen those threats? So again, just thinking about those things with a proactive approach. But certainly, as I said, can be used for personal, but it's very valuable when you're looking at in a team environment to really set departmental and organizational goals as well. All right, so let's begin to wrap up here with some goal-getting tips. All right, first of all, think big, but start small. So remember, those goals are kind of those broad things, those abstract things, but it's those small steps that are going to get us there. You're not going to do that in just one big, take one step and it's done. So we want to think big, but we want to start small. So let's say that perhaps you have a goal that you want to own your own home. All right, so you want to own your own home. That's a big goal. And when we think about that, that can perhaps seem at first like monumental and insurmountable. How will I get there? So think big. Yeah, we want to have lofty goals, but we want to start small. So when you think about, okay, I want to own my own home. Well, what does that look like? Well, I probably need to begin to start saving some money for a down payment. All right, well, down payment on a house could be a lot of money, but we want to start small. So your first goal then within that big goal could be, I want to save $1,000 in the next 3 months to begin to put some money towards a down payment on that house. So when we break that down into a smaller scale, it's not quite as intimidating, right? So $1,000 over 3 months is $333 a month. How can I do that? So that's much smaller than just to think about, $1,000 all of a sudden. If we break that out over time, then probably you can begin to do some things to save that money, an extra $300 a month. So then break down the steps that are going to take you there, right? So even when we're thinking about those small things that we can do, we can break that down into steps. So that might be looking like we want to write down where we spend, let's look at our spending over a month's time. Let's look at February, let's look at where our money went. Did we eat out a lot? Did I, go on vacation? Probably not right now, but what did I do? What are some things that I did? Where was I spending some money where I could possibly pare that back and save a little bit? How much do you net each month? Again, looking back and just kind of assessing how much you net and how much you spend, and figure out where that money's being spent and determine then where you could perhaps spend less if possible. And then begin to determine, what's going to take you there. How are we going to get there then? How can we earn more? Perhaps that might be another way. Then maybe I could generate some income. Maybe I could sell something, or pick up a little job here, or whatever that looks like. So think about those real. Again, we're back to the action. What are those real actions that I can do that will take me towards that ultimate goal, whatever that happens to be? All right, next, schedule the time to do the task. And so if you go back, and I'll just flip back there really quickly, and I'm talking about I'm talking about these little steps that are going to get us there. So that I'm talking about carving out the time to actually sit down and do these things, writing down where you spend the money, how much you net each month, all of those things, schedule a time to do that. Because again, if we don't schedule things, if we don't set out a time to do that, those things keep getting pushed to the back burner, and then we may not ever get there. So schedule time to do those tasks. Thursday night at 7 p.m., we're going to sit down and go over the last 3 months spending and look at where that, where we spent our money, and perhaps then where we could scale back. Number 4 then is to have a contingency plan. Let's say that with your goal of saving $1,000 in the next 3 months, you sit down and you do those tasks and you kind of determine where your money goes. Let's say that you discover that you're spending $10 to $15 every day going to Starbucks, for instance, which might sound like, how do you spend $15 at Starbucks? But as my husband likes to call Starbucks, $5. It doesn't take long to spend $15 to $20 or $10 to $15 a day there. So let's say that you're actually going into work and you're grabbing a cup of coffee, and not just coffee, but the frou-frou $5 drink every time you go into work. And then let's say you hit that slump at work at after lunch, you need a little pick me up, and Starbucks is just right over here. So maybe you're popping over there to pick up another one, and maybe you need a little snack with this one. So let's just say that that's what you found out that you're doing, and that's an easy fix. So here's what I can do then. I can begin to break that Starbucks perhaps, and figure out that I can stop doing that. What are some things that I can do? Well, I can bring coffee from home, or I can keep a bag of coffee at the office to make my coffee there. But do have a contingency plan. We all know when it comes to goals, many times we're changing habits in order to get there. That's why it's a goal. So we have to have a contingency plan. Life's going to get in the way. Let's say that you say, okay, well, I'm going to bring coffee from work every morning, in my cup. And then I'm going to have a bag of coffee at work when I get, when I have my slump later in the afternoon that I can go to. Have a contingency plan. Life is going to get in the way. So when your kid, spills your nice cup of coffee that you made at home, know that you've got a backup plan. Okay, well, it'd be real easy just to roll into Starbucks right now, but I've got coffee at the office. Or you've kind of got built in that contingency plan. You've planned. Again, it's that being proactive and thinking about what might get in my way here. But just knowing that life is going to happen, and kind of having that backup plan can really help you to stay on track with that. Number 5, and I'm a big believer in this, is to reward yourself. So whatever that looks like to you, that you reward your efforts. Look how much just in 5 days, I've saved $50. Look at this. So you reward yourself in some way. Again, if we're going back to our Starbucks example, perhaps you buy yourself a cool travel mug that you can't spill, so your kid doesn't spill it, or you buy some nice coffee, because even buying a bag of nice coffee is going to be way cheaper than that $10 to $15 habit that you had going on before. So reward yourself in some way, again, to keep that motivation going towards that goal. And then also, and this is a big one too, is to get rid of that all or none mentality. So again, we know life's going to happen and we're probably going to slip. Habits are hard, and you may slip, and you probably will, but keep going. Just because you slipped up and got Starbucks today, you don't just throw it all in and go, well, I just can't do this, and then go back to that habit. So get rid of that all or none mentality, and know that it's just those little steps every single day, whatever it is that you're doing, working towards. It's those little tiny steps. Nobody ever did it in a giant step. Those little tiny steps are the ones that are going to get us there. And so show yourself some grace then when you do mess up, or you backslide a little bit on whatever it is. Get rid of that all or none mentality. It's those little steps that are going to take you up the rung of that ladder to get you to that goal. I will again wrap up very quickly as our time is running out. Just some apps for goal setting. There are thousands, it seems like, out there. I've just included a few here, and I will tell you that I included most of these because most of these at least have a free version. Habit Bull is one, Done is another, Productive is the name of another one, Goal Setting Tracking Planner, again, very straight to the point with the title of that one. And then Trello is a good one for collaboration. So again, if you're thinking about goals that you are working in conjunction with others, perhaps organizational or team goals, Trello is a great one where you guys can kind of all check in, and everybody can see where everybody's going there, and the progress that we're making, and reassess or whatever we need to do. So those are just a few. Of course, just a simple search on your phone if you're inclined to do that, but you don't have to have an app for goal setting. As we said, so many of these, it's just a pen to paper. And as we saw, the more if you write it down, if you get it down and you review it, then your success rate is going to increase dramatically. So I'll just wrap up here with, remember again, that's what I was just saying, that your potential to succeed increases dramatically when you write down your goal and you have hammered out those details. It doesn't take long, but it does take a concerted effort to do that. You got to think about, you got to have that mental creation first. So write down that goal supported by those SMART objectives that we talked about. And then remind yourself of your why. That's a big one. As we said, we have to know why we're doing something. What is it? I shared with you guys that you saw my goal a while ago. I've 20 pounds I've put on during COVID times. And I set that goal for myself back in early February. I do have, I wanted to lose 20 pounds. My why for this is that in June, I'm going with my husband and my 2 adult kids out to Zion National Park to hike for several days. And 20 extra pounds when you're carrying a pack is a lot of weight. So I want to get that off. That's my why. I want to, and that's a big why for me. I want to be able to spend that awesome time with my family. So it's a constant reminder for me when I want to slack off, or I don't want to, count my calories, or I don't want to exercise. I remind myself of that why. That keeps me on that track. Then use those positive action-oriented words, I can and I will, in your goal statement, because that's hammering in that intention, right? And then review and read your goal every day. So in other words, just keep your eyes on the prize there and remind yourself why you're doing this, how you're doing this. Always be flexible and willing to reassess. If it's not working, then you may have to reconstruct that goal statement then to help you get there. But we just have to keep, it's so much of a mental game. That's why that mental creation should always, always precede any execution of working towards those goals, because that's what's going to ultimately get us where we're wanting to go. All right. So there it is. I'll leave you with a quote from Yogi Berra. May you rest in peace. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up someplace else. And that is just the truth. If we don't figure out where it is that we want to go, then chances are we're going to get to the end of the year, or we're going to get to the end of the quarter, or we're going to get to the end of 5 years, or we're going to get to the end of our lives, and we're not at all where we had aspired to be. So write those goals down. Always know your why. And with that, I will share our final slide there. And turn to Kara, I guess.
Well, first off, I'll ask Anthony, do we have any questions for Amy that were submitted before I wrap up?
No, just one kind of observation, Amy, of,
Okay.
it's a strong appreciation for the fact that you talked about goal getting. Goal setting's often talked about, but kind of how you then pump yourself up to then achieve those goals.
Mhm.
And one thing that I often see in our work with the Alumni Association as an organization too is that we try to make everything, write our objectives into the actual goal, and to leave ourselves the flexibility, as you kind of presented with those objectives being your more dynamic portions to your goal. I always kind of use the reference, our goal is to win the game or win the day, and our objective is going to be, we're going to do it through A, B, and C, much like you laid out with your personal goals.
Right.
So I appreciate you really calling that out. And one thing, particularly in COVID times, I think that I've heard that a statement that kind of makes me chuckle is flexible goals.
Right. We've definitely had flexible goals this year in 2020, right?
Absolutely. So thank you, Amy. We appreciate you giving your time and your talent to us today. And so
Thank you for having me.
Let Kara kind of wrap us up. So.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I want to ditto that. So thank you, Amy, for this great discussion on tips on goals and objectives. And also like to thank the WKU Alumni Association for inviting us to come on today and for this partnership. We are truly enjoying it. We'd also like to thank each of you that have joined us for this webinar during its live broadcast, and to those that are watching through the recording. If today's session has you wanting more, the Office of Continuing and Professional Development has numerous training opportunities for your personal and professional growth, as well as training needs for your workforce and place of employment. There are several links on your screen right now. The top one is a discounted session link that has more training on today's topic of goals and objectives. So feel free to go there if you would like more. For more information on non-credit professional growth opportunities as a whole, you can always contact our office, the Office of Continuing and Professional Development at WKU, for more information. So I'm going to wrap up today. Also, our social media links are on there, so please give us a follow. And I know as the WKU Alumni Association, give them a follow on theirs as well. I do want to go ahead and say the next session will be on April 15th at noon Central Time. It will be the live version, and that will be work-life balance, and that is navigating the digital world, which is where we're all at right now. So we hope to see you then again on April the 15th.